I am an elite athlete, having represented my country 3 times, and an avid competitor on the New Zealand show jumping circuit. Therefore, I deal with horses ranging from high-level performance horses to young stock and breeding mares on a daily basis. This made the undertaking of an equine-related investigation into the highly speculative and yet critical issue of iodine imbalance extremely relevant to me and the wider equine community. My name is Sophie Burling, and I am a 16-year-old Year 13 student at Kerikeri High School. I will be looking at the concentration of iodine in common horse feed products and hence the recommended feeding quantities. Iodine is an important constituent in the production of thyroid hormones, which are responsible for maintaining the body's metabolic state as well as normal growth and development. This makes it essential in reproduction, aiding in fertility and the skeletal development of the offspring. New Zealand soils are thought to be low in iodine, and many people may overcompensate for this by feeding or consuming iodine-rich supplements, not understanding that as a trace mineral, iodine will cause problems both when deficient and in excess. Worryingly, the symptoms for deficiency and toxicosis are both the same. For a horse consuming an average of 10 kilograms of roughage, 55 to 75 milligrams of iodine daily has been seen to be toxic. Because iodine is concentrated through the placenta and mammary glands, in utero and suckling foals are most sensitive to iodine toxicosis, and goiter has been visible in some foals whose mother was receiving as little as 40 to 50 milligrams of iodine daily.
As I discussed in my introduction, iodine can have a huge effect on the reproductive success and health of broodmares and their foals. The following extract is of a book that published a study done on mares who were supplemented excess iodine throughout their pregnancy.
In summary, the results showed that the foals of mares who were supplemented excess iodine for the duration of their pregnancy were affected, whereas those from mares whose supplementation was stopped in the final few months appeared fine.
This shows that however damaging the effects of iodine are on the fetus, it will only come into effect in the last 1 to 2 months of gestation. 67% of fetal growth and 90% of bone development will occur in the last 3 months of a mare's 11-month gestation. I aim to investigate the concentration of iodine in various horse feed and supplement products and the relationship between these concentrations and the quantities fed to horses. This also assessed the issue of mineral imbalance due to the feeding of multiple products at one time. I did this using the knowledge that I had obtained through my extensive background research on iodine toxicity and deficiency. I believe that due to misinformation and misunderstanding, many people are feeding more than the daily recommended dosage of iodine to their horses. This could be contributing to one of the many general care and reproductive issues that the equine community struggles with today. The 5 products that I will be testing are kelp, iodized table salt, forage, grain, and mineral mix. Mineral mix is the only product that stipulates an iodine concentration in conjunction with daily feeding quantities. The common trend here is that very little information on trace minerals is provided in the marketplace. This contributes to users overcompensating and oversupplying iodine to their animals.
In order to measure the amounts of iodine present in feeds and supplements, I had to have all my samples in a form where iodide ions were present. This meant I had to ash the 3 plant-based samples so that I could then dissolve all 5 samples in boiling water. I then had to oxidize these iodide ions to iodine. This was the first problem that I encountered, as they oxidized past iodine to iodate, meaning that I had to reduce the iodate back to iodine using a known amount of iodide. I could then undertake quantitative analysis of the iodine contents via a titration process.
These values are accurate for the products that weren't ashed. However, the products that were ashed lost a lot of mass through dehydration, so therefore I had to redo the whole ashing process so that I could calculate a dehydration factor. This could then be multiplied back over the results to give me an accurate reading.
Using this information, I was able to calculate a parts per million value, which could be used to look at the iodine concentration of each product in perspective with the approximate mass of the feedal supplement that would generally be fed to horses. My findings showed that iodine is in fact present in all sources, some of which would be unexpected by the general equine community. The 2 mineral-based supplements contained the highest levels of iodine, much higher than those of the feed products. This was to be expected, as they are usually fed by the gram rather than by the kilo, as in the feed products. I expected the kelp sample to contain the highest concentration of iodine, but it did not. This can be explained by the fact that it is a plant-based supplement rather than being factory synthesized, and is therefore vastly variable and is unreliable in terms of mineral content. This variability is of concern to me as consistency needs to be achieved when feeding supplemental trace elements. All of my values were higher than I would have expected. This could be explained by the parameters of school laboratory restrictions on my method. Iodine is fairly insoluble in water, and so solid granules formed within my solutions and adhered to glass surfaces. If my blank titration was affected by this, then all of my values would have suffered subsequently. Iodine is soluble in a solvent such as cyclohexane, however this is not allowed in schools. Many horse owners may not be taking into consideration that iodine is present in unexpected sources such as grass and hay. Because of this, I believe that these people are oversupplying iodine to their horses by means of misunderstanding and misinterpretation of symptoms. This leads to a detrimental effect on performance and reproduction. Previous studies have demonstrated the wildly variable iodine concentrations in kelp plants. Species location and water depth can mean concentrations vary from 16 to over 8,000 mg per kilogram, making kelp as a generic supplement unsafe. I would like to test various kelp samples from different geographic locations to develop a trend line of iodine content. If people were aware of the origin of their kelp supplement, then by using these findings they would be better qualified to make a more satisfactory estimate of its iodine content. I would also be very interested in undertaking a practical investigation into the effects of iodine deficiency and toxicosis on the fetus at varying stages of the pregnancy. I believe that this would be of significant relevance to New Zealand's valuable bloodstock and sport horse industries. From my findings, it can be ascertained that this project is not only of great importance to the equine community, but also that it is highly applicable in human medicine, and that there is great potential for an expansion of knowledge and understanding.